All right, here we are. We're live. One device is live. One device is going live. All right, welcome to National Skill Development Association. We're just waiting for our second feed here to get clicked up. And once we get this going, then we'll be good to go. It's my first time doing this. This is going to be quite an adventure for myself and you both. I got Nicole with me here. She's my brains behind the operation. So, and Jonathan helped us get mic'd up, which is great. I'm just waiting for you two to kick on. I don't know how long this takes. No idea. But what are you on? Yeah. All right. So we're gonna take some questions. We've had some questions come in at the National Skill Development Association on just some coaches and I think some parents that have asked some questions and some really good questions actually just on hockey and skill stuff and also a little bit on some positional things and even some breakouts and different stuff like that. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But for right now, first thing obviously is real happy so far with how the National Skill Development Association has been going and kind of the feedback that we've been getting with coaches and parents that have reached out and kind of been a part of the community. So we're going to try doing these live sessions every once in a while. I'd love to get some of them on the ice so we can get some live footage on the ice and get some questions from coaches and parents or players as we're moving through different things and be able to see some stuff live on the ice and how we break stuff down, or if parents or coaches have any questions on different things that they'd like to see done, then we can obviously work on that and kind of get that going as well. So we'll look to do that in the future for sure. But seeing that I'm old, I'm gonna put on my readers here and check out what's going on here with our YouTube page. Doesn't seem to be going up, eh?
No. Just says reading. The Facebook is not.
You just keep going on Facebook and
Yeah.
then put it up after.
Okay. Perfect. All right. If you're new or you're just starting to follow or you're just checking this out for the first time, you can look up a lot of our stuff on YouTube on the National Skill Development Association or NSDA. We've also got a podcast called Behind the Gear, and that's been really fun. It's kind of been a bit of something that I've always wanted to do and started just interviewing guys that we work with and we have some female content as well. We've got Kelly Patton, who's coaching CIS in Laurier, and she's going to be on the podcast as well. And we're still moving towards getting some other players, coaches, and things like that on there. But a lot of good content on there on just how kind of these NHL players became NHL players and where they were when they were 10 and 11 and 12 and the passion they had for the game and how they grew the game and how they became obviously elite players and kind of pursuing their goals. Whether it's college hockey, we have some players that are playing college hockey right now. We have some players that are just playing junior. We have some players that are obviously in the NHL, and then some coaches as well, and different things like that. So we're kind of covering a lot of different aspects. And one of my goals is for young kids to listen to this, or parents listen to it, and obviously get some good tidbits and some good information on what how this whole journey kind of goes down, especially when you got a young boy or girl playing hockey. But also some of the different avenues that players can take to make hockey a living, which I think is cool. And I've been very fortunate to be able to do what I do and make a living doing it. So that's why I want to get in with some coaches and talk to some coaches and GMs and scouts and different things like that, and look at some of the different avenues that a lot of these males and females have pursued in order to push hockey to be kind of their full-time job. So it was really cool. Again, it's called Behind the Gear, and you can see that and find that on at the National Skill Development Association. You can check us out on Facebook, at our Facebook page, and also on Instagram as well, the NSDA hashtag. So I'll start with a couple of questions here to begin. One of the questions that we had was talking about D-pinching, and as a coach, when is a good time to let your D-pinch, or when should you kind of let that D-pinch? And for some of you that aren't aware, obviously D-pinching is when that D's on the blue line and the play's coming up, or the D's on the red line and they jump into the play to try to break the play up. So if they can get a chance to get that puck or break that play up, that's obviously D-pinching. So an easy way, I think, for a lot of coaches, and now you see the defenseman positions change so much, where D are so much more mobile now, and they're jumping in the play, and they're almost acting like a fourth forward sometimes. So having your D, a kind of good rule of thumb that a lot of coaches use now is, if that D is 100% sure they can get the puck, or they can break that play up, then go. If it's a 50-50, then stay back. And 50-50 is going to be their read. You may have a player that comes to the bench and tells you, hey coach, I thought I could get it. But at the same, you want to obviously give that player the freedom to be able to pinch a little bit, but at the same time, making sure that they're making the right reads and that they're jumping in at the right time. But if it is a 50-50 puck, I mean, those aren't great odds, so I would have my defenseman pull back. If the D thinks that they got a good chance of getting a stick on that puck or breaking that play up, then obviously you can have rules on your team that no problem going. At the end of periods or the end of a game, if it's a tight game, then I would probably lean towards no pinching at all, and D just playing their position and backing off and playing the rush rather than jumping in and trying to break those plays up a little bit, right? So I think that's a good kind of start, but in the kind of that 50-50 rule, if it's a 50-50 puck, I would not send a D in. If the D thinks they can get it, then by all means jump in and pinch. And I'll grab a board just to kind of show, obviously pinching, if you check out a whiteboard like this, pinching can happen. Obviously you're going to have D mostly on the blue line here, but if D are up here and they decide to jump in, that'd be a pinch. Or if they're on the rush here, the play pops out and the D jumps up here, that would be a pinch. So anywhere where the D's kind of pushing forward or pushing that, jumping in the play, then that would be considered a pinch. So you want to kind of make sure that obviously young defensemen understand what a pinch is and that they get a good idea of when to do it and when not to do it.
Put the microphone in here.
Yeah, sure. We're going to set up the mic and might be a little bit clearer. So we'll see how that is. Hopefully that's a little bit better for sound. All right, the second question that we had was how to get players to engage. So how to get players to keep their tempo up and keep working hard and engaging. And that's a kind of $1 million question, right? How do you help your players get hard, or how do you help your players get drive? And a lot of times that's just natural. Players either have it or they don't. But you can definitely harness it, and you can definitely help those players that maybe don't have that puck. They're not hunting pucks all the time. They're not hungry all the time. You can definitely help them in practice by just making practices, number one, fun. Players aren't going to want to come to practice if it's not fun. But number two, I think having competitive drills in practice. So getting, those puck races going, or little battle drills or compete drills down low where players have to compete for pucks and have to work, at getting pucks and making it fun. A lot of times adding a time to it. So if you had a drill where it's like, hey, you're going to go for 30 seconds, it's a one-on-one down low, both players can try to score, and it's 30 seconds, and whoever has the most goals after 30 seconds. Or if it's a little bit of a team game where you have maybe a 3-on-3 down low, or you have a couple different things going on, then it's a great way to motivate players, but also get them moving a little bit and get them pushing and get them, kind of pushing each other just to get things going and keeping your practice a little bit more fun for them, but also adding that competitiveness to it. And I always find races are great, especially with young kids. The young players are racing everywhere anyway, even if you line them up just to work on skating or something like that. They're always trying to beat their buddies. So adding a little bit more of a component, in a race. So maybe they have a couple skills they have to perform, and then they're racing after a puck. Or maybe it's just a straight up one-on-one race down the ice, and they're getting a chance just to compete with each other to try to get that puck. But I find a lot of times that helps some of those players that maybe lack some of the motivation to get that puck, or a little bit aren't as puck hungry as some of the other players. I find that really helps them kind of push their pace a little bit and gets them involved in competing a little bit more. And obviously, the old saying is always, you practice how you play. And I think when you get players having fun in practice and competing in practice and keeping that tempo up in practice, that'll translate into the games. And especially, maybe not right away, but if you're practicing like that every week and you're having fun and changing things up a little bit and keeping the players thinking and keeping them moving and keeping that pace up in practice, it'll definitely help translate into games and hopefully help some of those players that maybe aren't as motivated all the time to get a little bit more motivated and a little bit more buy-in from them as the season goes on. We've got another question here that we had. Someone was talking about breakouts and how to break out. Really simple. Obviously there's tons of ways to break out of your zone and kind of get pucks moving up ice. I think, with young players, a lot of times coaches focus a lot on systems at young ages, and I don't think it translates very well for some of the kids. Number one, it slows down your practice, and a lot of times, you can practice breakouts all you want, but if your players can't make 2 passes, it's going to be really, really hard to break out anyway. So I think working on those fundamental skills is huge. Not to say that you don't have to work on systems. Obviously, we need to work on some structure and things like that, especially as players get a little bit older and a little bit better. And even some of the players in Adam and Pee Wee, I mean, obviously are great players and can definitely understand and comprehend breakouts and attacks and different things like that. But I think keeping it simple is probably the best way, and especially if you have a new team or a young team, and teaching them how to basically break out the right way. And simple ones, I'll draw one up here that's really, really simple, but even just kind of like your standard, if you looked at your ice rink here, kind of your standard just controlled breakout where you had your D behind the net here, right? 1 D net front, and then you have your centerman and your winger. So let's say the puck's going to come out this way. You'd have your winger come down here, right? So your left winger would be coming down here to open up in order to receive a pass. Your centerman would come down nice and low, right? This D would swing this way, and then your opposite winger would come down and support. And then depending on what you like as a coach, you may want this player to stay wide, or you'd have this player come through the middle like this. So now the D's got options of giving it here to the winger, maybe to the middle, and then now you got players coming out here, and then the play can be here or off the wall to this player coming in. But really, really simple, and just keeping your players for the most part in their lanes, aside from this player coming across the ice here. But really simple. But again, as coaches, one of the biggest things with coaches is being creative and creating, changing things up a little bit and adding different, concepts and different things for those players to understand and to learn and to, figure out as they go. And we all know hockey is very unpredictable. So a lot of times when things will happen in the game, we have it structured as a coach, we have everything laid out the way we want it to go, and it's not going to go that way just because the puck bounced a different way or that winger missed the pass. So players need to be able to adapt and read and react on their own as well, and scramble sometimes in order to make plays that maybe aren't perfectly structured, but that skill comes out of them a little bit when they have to make those plays and scramble to get pucks out of the zone or to help out the D and get pucks moving. But real simple, I think sometimes simple is better, and keeping these kind of breakouts and stuff like that simple for the kids, I think is huge. Can you throw me that tissue actually, please? I'm going to wipe this down. All right. Another question that we had was, when do you start implementing tougher skills? So for instance, the actual question was, when do you start implementing Crosby turns and different things like that? So opening up. And if, for those of you who aren't familiar, a Crosby turn or an eagle turn or a 10 and 2 is when you're skating and you open up your feet. So you're opening up your hips to protect the puck or maybe to fake. But when do you start introducing that stuff to young players? And I'm a firm believer that earlier the better. So for young players, if we can get them good on their edges and obviously skating forward and backwards and stopping, but once they get good on their edges, that's going to open up the categories of skill that they can do with their feet. And the better they are on their edges, it's going to translate into everything they do, whether it's a crossover or backwards crossover or transition. So getting players to start doing some edging like that and opening up their hips, I think is huge. And you see it so much more in the game now. And if you look at the NHL level, guys are doing this every shift, where if they're attacking the net, you see wraparounds done this way, where they open up their feet and they're riding their inside edges, or you see players adding little fakes. If they pick up a rim, maybe they're faking like they're going to drop it, and then they're pulling it back, and just getting those defenders to bite a little bit or to add that little bit of a fake just to get that defender maybe to cheat and open up a little bit of time and space. So I think the earlier that you can start introducing this, so early for me would be, players that are probably 2-3 years into hockey, where they're really strong on their skates or starting to get strong on their skates. And when I say strong on their skates in 2-3 years, I don't mean that they're phenomenal skaters, but they're able to move. They're obviously skating quite well forward and backwards, and they're gliding and all that kind of stuff, and then starting to implement it. Now it's going to be frustrating at first because you're gonna have a nice drill drawn up or something going on, and it's going to probably blow up, or they're going to struggle to do it. But if you stick with it and you keep with it, you'll be amazed at how quick these young players will pick stuff up. It's unbelievable. And you see the skill set of these young players right now, even at the novice and Adam and Pee Wee level, compared to back when we played. It's quite different, and it's really cool on how good these young players are. But simple drills, and you guys have all seen this, all you male and female coaches out there have seen this stuff before. But when you're talking about working on opening up. So that mohawk turn or that 10 and 2 is, you know, really simple. You can use the dots. We use one where we use all 8 dots. So not the 9th dot, the face-off dot, but all the 8 dots. Players will be in the corner down here. So lined up in the corner here and just coming around like this and all inside edge, right? And then coming back the other way, they do outside edge and they will go around kind of the whole rink just like that. Simple, you don't need any props, very, very easy, just using the dots. That way their players can go as wide as they want or as tight as they want as they're getting better. But if you did it all on the inside edge, so on one leg, and then do it all on outside edge, so they're working on individual edges, and then adding both feet, and then adding your opening up. So as you come in here, if I was skating towards this dot right here, I would come in, I would lead with my left foot, glide on my left foot on my inside edge, and then get my right foot down. So I'm opening up in like a big V here, and then skating forward to the next dot. And same thing here. Now I'd lead with my right foot, would be out in front, and then my left foot would come down, and now I'm making that big V here around this dot right here, and then skating out of it. So I think, you know, working on this stuff as early as you can is huge, and, you know, helping these young players understand what their edges are, number one. So they have 2 edges on a skate, and why they use them and what they're used for, I think is huge, because a lot of times, you know, I'll deal with young kids and I'll ask them how many edges on a hockey skate, and these kids are 8 and 9 and I have no idea. But them being aware of what their skates are, why they use them, where their balance points are on their skates, so trying to keep that weight in the ball of their foot and staying centered over their boot, I think is huge. And when they understand that and they can feel it and they start to really, you know, get it, that's when you can start making some real major improvements with their skating overall. And edging to me is the biggest one, because everything stems from your edges. No matter what you're doing on your feet, obviously, with your skates on, everything's going to stem from edges. So you want to make sure that they understand what they are and then how to use them and how that's all going to translate. We've also got, well, there was actually another question coming in. And this one here was talking a little bit more about stick stuff. So talking about snapshot and when do you start introducing a snapshot? Snapshot's a very technical shot, obviously. But again, going back to the same thing we talked about with edging, I think it's better to introduce it early rather than later. And if you can get that technique down to some of these young players on how to take a snapshot, it's going to look terrible at the beginning and it's going to be really hard for them to perform. But if they're working at it and practicing it and they know the proper technique on it, it will come. And I mean, we've had players as early as 8, 9 years old being able to snap a puck pretty good and have their technique really good. And then that helps, obviously, as they get stronger. And as they continue practicing on it, then their shot, you know, escalates a ton. But a couple of key points when you're talking about snapshot is obviously that hand positioning. So making sure their hands aren't too close, that they got a good gap between their hands. And if you're not sure, that gap would be about hip width apart. I know a lot of players like to put their forearm in their stick, which is totally fine. So hold their stick in the air and that forearm length is that kind of gap. Or if you put it beside your hips, that hip width. But that's really important. So many players have their hands too tight or too far. So making sure it's in a good spot. And then keeping your hands away from your body. A lot of times players get jammed up with their hands close to their body, but keeping those hands away and that top hand up. And the top hand up, especially for a snapshot, is huge because you want to leverage your stick. You want to be able to flex that stick a little bit and use that stick the way it's supposed to be used. So by having that top hand up and out, now you're able to push on that bottom hand. And as far as the blade and the puck, if you're going to load a really good snapshot, you're going to start the puck on the toe of your blade. And you're going to give it a little tap or a little tug to the middle, and then that's where you're going to snap that puck. And that little tap and then snap is where that snapshot's going to take place. And another thing that you're going to see a lot of is players carrying the puck too far away from their body. So whether that's way too far out to the side or way too far out in front or way too far behind, you want to try to keep it right beside their boot. So on their forehand side, right beside their skate, about a blade out and about a blade up and down. So kind of a little bit of a shooting box is what we call it, but a little area right beside their body that we're going to try to keep that puck in. And this is really, really hard for young players because they've always been taught to really load a wrist shot and be way far behind their body and then follow through with that wrist shot. But if we can get them to stay in that box, it's huge, especially down the road. So maybe it's, you're not going to have tons of success at the beginning with it, but if they do understand those concepts and start to practice those concepts, then you're going to see that shot get much, much better as they're moving through and as they're continuing to work on that stuff. But a snapshot obviously is probably the most effective shot in hockey. You can snap a puck off your heel or your middle, and you see it all the time in the NHL, especially when players are letting quick shots go. You see it a lot of times where players are just firing pucks quick off the heel or off the middle. But everything's got to be quick and released quickly. So if we can get young players understanding that and starting to work on that technique a little bit, then you're going to see crazy amounts of improvement as you're getting older and stronger and continuing to reinforce those good habits. All right. All right, so we got a question here from Sean, and Sean's asking about half ice gap control drill for new defensemen, which is a really good question. So a half ice, I'm assuming that you're working in potentially a 2-team practice where you're using half the ice. So you're basically looking at doing something that, a lot of times the teams you're splitting ice, so you're working one team on one half of the ice and another team on the other half of the ice. And for defensemen, one thing too, as when you're working with young defensemen, I think it's really important to teach young defensemen to learn how to gap up with toes first and heels first. And what I mean by that is we've always been taught to transition with heels first and coming in. So these are my skates, and front of my skates are my fingertips. A lot of times players come in and pivot like a side stop and then backpedal back. And now you see a lot more defensemen tracking with toes first, so toes going first, tracking that player, and then pivoting, and then coming back. And I think that's important to teach young players. And that toes first would be more to close gaps or squeeze players to the board. So if you had a player coming down the ice like this, on this side here, the player's carrying the puck here, and this defenseman would come in this way and try to squeeze them toes first, and then pivot, and then backpedal back as they're coming back. So I think that's important, number one, to teach players how to transition properly. But if you're looking at like this, just a really simple closing a gap drill where you want to get players involved and players moving. So, and if you're already only using half the ice, you could do something as simple as this. So if you had I'll draw it up top so everyone can see it up here, but let's say you had red line in here, and you had your forwards maybe up on the dot, or we'll set up forwards on the blue line here, and we'll have our D right here. So 1D would start off, come up, transition, and backpedal back. And we could have the forward, depending on how old they are, the forward could come up here, tag the red line, and then chip the puck in. So now that D's got to go back and retrieve the puck and break them out. So this forward right here could come in here, open up, and get a pass. And then this player right here come back out. You could set up a cone, or a coach could be there for a pass. Or the player would come up, give it, skate around, get it back, or just come around the cone. And now this defenseman, after they make their pass, have to come up and gap up. So now they got to pivot and then backpedal back on this one-on-one. Right, really simple. You get some players moving. You can run, obviously, switch sides so the D and the forwards are working on both sides. But forcing this D to get that gap. Now, what is that gap? Ideally, on a one-on-one, that gap's going to be able to stick and a half away. So if that's roughly in here, if that D is way back here, which you'll see a lot, especially at the young ages, then that's going to allow this forward to pick up a ton of speed and obviously make a lot more moves as it's coming in and have a lot more options. If that gap's too tight, then it's an easy play for the forward to chip it by the D or make a quick move and get by that defenseman. So it's very important for D to get up ice after they make their pass, get up ice, transition, and then backpedal back and keep that gap tight and let them get burned. A lot of times the D will get, that forward will go blow by them. That's okay. But then they can get that feeling of, okay, I'm too tight here, or I'm too loose, my gap's too loose, I got to get up ice a little bit more. And the one thing you'll see with young D is they're going to be here, they're going to start going backwards, and then they're going to want to skate forward at that player and attack that player. And that's, again, just a young defenseman do this all the time. But making sure that they're tracking and trying to match speed with that forward, not lunging at the forward, which sometimes obviously is really, really tough. If you have a younger age group than this, so let's say I would probably run this with probably, as early as novice, depending on how good the novices are. But if you have a young group, or maybe they're a house league group, or they're just starting out, or maybe they're not super familiar with a bunch of drills, you can make it even easier than that, where on the whistle, maybe there's a cone here, you have your forwards here again, and this forward just comes up and tags that cone, and then attacks your D one-on-one. And the D can start off anywhere you'd like him to start, on the goal line or here, and that D's got to come up, gap up, and then come back on that one-on-one. Or you can add a second player, so a second forward comes in, and now that D is going to gap up and then play them back on a 2-on-1. Right? And our gap for a 2-on-1 is going to be a little bit different. It'll be a little bit looser, and obviously the D's number one job there is to try to take away the pass. So if these guys are coming down, let's say my puck carrier is this player here, and we've got a D in the middle here with the stick in the lane. The D's number one job is to take away that pass, right? And the goalie's job is to take that shot. Right? So if we play it well, then that D is going to be able to push that forward out to the other side and try to get a shot alleviating that pass that potentially could come through the middle. All right, I hope that answered your questions. If you want a different style of drill or anything like that, let me know, and I can definitely write that up for sure. All right, another question here, just talking about passing and saucer passing opposed to just flat passes, which obviously saucer passes I think are super effective, and they're something that definitely are helpful. But there's a time and place for saucer passes. But I think it's a skill that we need to teach the players, because there's a lot of times when players are going to be stuck in situations where they have to get a puck over a stick or over a skate or maybe even over a leg or a body. And learning how to saucer pass, make that puck get up in the air nice and flat on the forehand or backhand, I think is a great skill and something that we definitely need to teach our young kids. Obviously, 90% of the passes probably should be on the ice and hard, but as players get older and a little bit better, then we definitely want to introduce saucer passing. And let's be honest, saucer passing is fun. It's really fun to work on. It's frustrating at the beginning, but once they get it, it's a lot of fun, and I think it's a great tool to be able to use. So what age would I start teaching that at? Probably young. Again, probably that 2-3 years into hockey when they kind of have good control of that stick and good control of that puck. And the big thing when you're teaching saucer passes are, teaching kids to open their blade up a little bit and roll that puck from heel to middle. You can chip a saucer pass, especially off your backhand, and give it a little bit of a chip. But again, you got to create a bit of a ramp for that puck. So if you're shooting it, if you're going to throw a saucer pass off your forehand, you want to lightly open up that blade. So if my blade's here and that's my cup blade over my puck, I'd want to open up that blade a little bit and roll kind of heel to middle as I'm letting that puck go on a pass. Backhand, same thing. So I'd open up my blade. If that's my cup backhand, I'd open up my blade a little bit and then roll off that puck, throwing that backhand. Next time we do this, so I'll bring in some props. I'll bring in some sticks and pucks and things like that. So some of these questions that we got previous to going live, or stuff that we get live, I can show some of that stuff on the fly as we get going for sure. So, Nicole, is there anything else? Was there any other questions?
YouTube channel and membership program.
Yeah. So one thing I kind of mentioned this at the beginning. It's our first time doing a live show. So anybody who's joining us here, we really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. It's something that, I'd love to get coaches' feedback, and I'd like to obviously get coaches' questions and parents' questions on anything they have, whether it's putting on hockey equipment or what kind of skates do I buy. And actually, there's one other question that I had from a young hockey dad who was talking about using props when your young kid first starts skating. So for instance, I'm sure you guys have all seen this, but the double blades. So you got the skates that you can buy, a lot of sports stores, but with two blades on the bottom. Is that good or bad? I'm of the belief that I would not buy those for my child. I'd put them on a normal pair of skates. I also probably wouldn't buy plastic boots, or the ones with the cranks, or the ones with the one strap that does them up, or Velcro. I'd get laced up skates, a Bauer CCM or something like that. That's in good shape, has good support, because the thing with the double blades, you may as well put them on there in boots, or her in boots, because they're not really going to be able to skate on them. They're going to kind of walk around, which is really fun. And if the goal is just to go out and have fun, and then that's great. But I know when I started with my little kids, I've got a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, and we started on just normal skates. We spent a lot of time doing snow angels and crawling in the bench and going to the penalty box. But I just wanted them to enjoy it and have fun with it. And then if they took it up and they like to skate, then great. But the first couple times we went out, it was all about just putting snow pants on and laying on the ice and making snow angels, and me trying to hold them up a little bit and killing my back, which I'm sure all you parents have done out there. So I would not use double blades. And also, I call them kickstands, but you've all seen those little orange kind of triangles that go in the middle of the blade, underneath the blade, and they kind of sit out on the side. So if you had your skate like this, it almost looked like that. Let's say the blade's here, it'll go like that, and the idea is that it's going to help the young player kind of stabilize a little bit. Again, I wouldn't use anything like that. I would just leave it the same way, just leave the normal blade. They'll battle through it a little bit, but man, these young kids are unbelievable at how they can pick things up, and 10, 15 minutes in, they're going to be able to start to stand on them a little bit with your help, and then you'll be amazed, if you take them public skating a couple times, at how quick they do pick it up. And for any of those kids that love it and the parents are right into it, what I've done before too, and I've seen buddies of mine do this, is get skate guards or even put tape on the bottom of the blade and let your son or daughter walk around the house in them. I know my son, for whatever reason, fell in love with his skates and he wanted to wear them all the time. So I just got skate guards. I taped skate guards on the bottom of them, and I just let him walk around the house with them. Not to say he's a great skater because of that at all, but he had the side-to-side movement down. It was like a rocking chair we got on the ice, because we all know that our blades are contoured, so he did have a hard time on the forward and backwards, but side to side he was pretty stable. So I'm not saying that gave him an advantage as a skater at all, but it's just something that, you know, they can work on that a little bit at home if they want to, right? If it's something that they enjoy and that maybe you want to put them in, then obviously you can strap the skates on at home and let them walk around at home for sure. Also, too, I mentioned this at the start of going live, but if you're interested in some more of this kind of stuff or videos, we have a ton of free videos on our YouTube channel at National Skill Development Association, so NSDA on YouTube. There's a ton of free videos on everything from forward skating, backward skating, side stopping, crossing over, hockey player position, balance and agility. There's a ton of free videos. I've had a friend of mine been helping me do these for a long time named Jonathan. He's been amazing, and we've had a real good time doing them. So we've got a bunch of those out. There also is some additional information and drills and things like that we have in there on a subscription base. So if you'd like to be part of the group, by all means, it would be awesome to have you. There's also some free content if you want to put your email in there on our website at improveyourskills.org. You can put your email in there and obviously get some free content out of that as well. And hopefully this is something that we're going to be doing. I'd like to try to get this a little more consistent, so maybe even once a week or once every 2 weeks. And we've been fielding some questions on Facebook, and we've been getting some feedback from coaches and parents, and that's where we're kind of gathering our questions. And there's been some live ones here today, which has been awesome. So
Maybe on Instagram and YouTube Live as well.
yeah, so we'll put this up on Instagram Live and YouTube Live as well, and as well as Facebook. So we'll try to get all those going. I don't think we got YouTube going today, but that was our IT guy wasn't very good. So we'll try to get. We might have to fire him. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. So I've got a question from Eric, and he said, could you please suggest a breakout, regroup, attack drill for a Pee-wee age group? One that makes players. Hang on. Can I see the rest of that? Sorry, guys, I'm old, so I got to put my readers on here. Do you see the rest of that question?
Yeah.
One that makes players.
Make a few decisions on the breakout other than just forcing the puck up the boards.
Okay, perfect. All right, so a breakout and a regroup and attack drill. So yeah, like there's a lot of real, again, kind of keeping it simple and then adding as you go. But if you look at here, I'll do, so this is for you, Eric, and any other coaches out there that are looking for something like this. But as far as, a lot of times you'll see players, and I'll do it as a half ice drill, just in case you are only a half ice, or you could run it at both ends. If you had a second coach on the ice with you, then you could have two lines going at the same time. But you'd have all your players up at the red line, so you'd have your winger, center, winger, and your D. And then you'd end up, throwing that puck in. So coach here would dump the puck in. You could get your goalies involved at the Pee-wee age of picking up rims, so fire it around here. So the goalie's got to come out and stop it. D would come back and pick up that puck. So again, communication is huge, right? So if that D, let's say this D right here is going to go get it, these guys are talking, whatever D is going to get it, the other D is going to come net front and then support out the side to be an option, right? And then your forward is going to come in and break out, so they'll come in, obviously break out however you have your breakout set up. I'll just keep erasing this so it doesn't get too full of lines. So now you have one D in the corner as support. You have your D behind the net with the puck. This winger's opening up. This centerman's going to support. This D steps out, makes his pass. Now they're coming out, and this winger, same thing, going to come up and maybe slash across or come up this side. So there's your breakout, obviously. And then what you do off of this is give it back to the coach. So these players right here would come up the ice. So now you've got your breakout that just happened. Pass went here. This guy moved it to the middle to the center. So yeah, you got center, winger, and then winger. And now you're going to give it to the coach. These guys are going to snap it to the coach. So if they move it here to here, up to the coach. And now these guys have to regroup. So however you decide to run your regroup, a standard regroup is, let's say the coach is going to push the puck this way. This winger right here would open up. This center right here would support, similar to our breakout. And then this winger would come across and help out here. And now they can regroup this way and then re-attack. So super simple with a half ice. Now if you wanted to do it full ice or a little bit longer, or 3/4 of the ice and have an extra set of D, what you could do is instead of having all your players here, have all your players on the sideboards like this,
and add 2 extra D in here. So now when these players come out, instead of giving the puck to the coach, these D would follow up as they're breaking out, backpedal back, and then these players right here would skate out, give it to the D, and now you can add a D to D option. You can add a quick up by the D. Right? You can add a bunch of different stuff to this with those D making plays as they're going through. So just adding 2 defensemen, having these players break out, break out, regroup with the D here, and then re-attack on a 3-on-2. So once they get the puck back, this winger, let's say, opens up, gets his pass, center supports, and this winger comes up. These 2 D that made the pass out, they would jump up. So these guys would jump up and regroup, transition here, and then they would take them back on a 3-on-2. All right, so that's a real simple one. I know you said without players rimming the puck up the boards, which I agree. I think a lot of times players are programmed just to get the puck and fire it. And practice is a great time to have players get their head up and make simple little plays and move the puck, right? And I think if you can add something like this to it, where you add that, I think that would be huge. As far as running that, the big thing here is getting those D to have patience. So when that D's behind the net here, he's going to have patience, or she's going to have patience, and then we got it here. So now we got options to move that puck laterally if we need to, or skate it out. And then in order to get them thinking a little bit quicker, add pressure. So now when that puck is first dumped in, right, to that D, so let's say that D's backpedaling back from here now, and he's going to go retrieve that puck out of forechecker. So FC for forechecker, just giving them light pressure. So that D now is under pressure a little bit like he would be in a game, and now they have to make a decision to fake or cut or move one way or the other. And this D's job right here is to support them, but also be talking and yelling and telling them man on, or wheel, or whatever cues that you have for your defenseman. And it's nice, as a coach, I think when you're going through breakouts, especially for the D, I think it's good to have a couple cues that you'll pass on to that D. So for instance, wheel means you're going to skate with a D. Or quick up means you're going to turn and right away you're going to look for that option up the boards. Or D to D. And those are 3 kind of standard ones. But if you add something like that with your D, then they know right away when they're going back and the goalie yells wheel, he knows he's taking the puck behind the net, he's skating with it. Or if the goalie's yelling quick up, then that D knows right away he's looking over his shoulder, turning up ice and looking for his option right away to move that puck. And it's really important to get this defenseman to shoulder check. I think that's one thing that we don't do enough of, is just getting D to look over their shoulder as they're going to retrieve pucks. And that saves, obviously, a ton of D from, number one, getting hit. I know Pee-wee, they're not hitting yet, but when contact comes in, getting hit, knowing where pressure is, and then also, really importantly, knowing where their options are. And you watch a D in the NHL, and it's unbelievable how many times they shoulder check. On a retrieval, going in to get a puck, they may shoulder check 2 or 3 times. And you'll see them look, and sometimes as soon as they get the puck, they know what they're doing with it. They turn and fire it, or they rim it, because they know they got a guy wide open on the far side. But there's nothing more frustrating for coaches when players are just rimming pucks around the boards and they're going to nobody, or to the other team, I guess. So and I think that's a real easy way to kind of add that in there. And all the drills that I draw up here too, I'll add those on the National Skill Development website as well. So it'll be on the NSDA, the National Skill Development Association website at improveyourskills.org. And again, I mentioned before, tons of free videos on there, and we'll get some of these drills out there as well that are out there. And a lot of times when you coaches or parents see drills, I always encourage everyone to be creative. So you may see a drill that I drew up or a drill that somebody else drew up, which you may have seen them before, maybe you haven't. And when you look at it, you may look at it and say, oh, you know what, if I added a cone here, if I had an extra pass here, you could tweak that drill a little bit and add some different components to work on. And I think that's really, really important. And I've said this before in other posts and other talks, it doesn't matter what the drill is. It could be the J drill, which is probably the most overused drill in hockey. But if you look at a simple drill like the J drill, where you got players here and they're coming, let's say, around center ice and getting a pass from this line. So super simple, right? You can add a bunch of stuff to it. You can add some cones down here. So now when they come in, now they got to make a move, right? You can add, this guy comes around, this guy jumps in. Now it's a 2-on-0, right? Or it's a 2-on-1, where the third guy in this line gives his pass. Now he's got to skate over here and play these guys on a 2-on-1. This player's coming in and this player's coming in, right? A lot of different things that you can do with these kind of drills that take real simple drills and adding some different stuff, different components to it. But I think the big thing here is, if you're doing a simple drill like the J drill, telling your players, all right, when you're coming around here, you're calling for the puck. All the way through here, you're calling for the puck. Stick's got to be on the ice. You got to have a good target stick on the ice. Make sure when you get the puck, you're shoulder checking. So you're looking up ice right here, making sure there's no pressure, right? And all those little things are what make up good drills, obviously, but also are going to help your players get better. Just to run them through normal drills is great, and they will get better just by doing repetitions, but you can definitely help your players get much better, much quicker by adding key components to each drill on what you want them to focus on and what you want them to touch on. All right. All right, great. Okay, so we'll kind of wrap it up here. If anyone else has anything else they want to add, feel free to jump in. But once again, thanks a lot for tuning in. Whoever checked us out today, really appreciate it. And love for you guys to check out and even leave some comments on stuff that you'd like to see on our YouTube channel at NSDA, or National Skill Development Association on YouTube. We have some great podcasts, as I mentioned before, on Behind the Gear. We have some real good players on there, like Bo Horvat, Boone Jenner, Oli Mata, Travis Konechny, Mitch Van de Sample, Mike McCarron, a bunch of really solid guys that came out to sit down and chat about hockey and their upbringing and how they got to where they are now and how they kind of set their goals and kept pushing. So that's called Behind the Gear, and that's on our NSDA YouTube channel as well. Or you can check out the NSDA website at improveyourskills.org. So again, that's improveyourskills.org, and that's got a ton of free videos, some drills. The podcasts are all on there as well. There's a ton of cool stuff there. And for any coach or parent that's looking to get into skill development or add more skill development to your practices, the videos are great just to give you a couple key points and key feeds on how to deliver those skills to your players in practice. And they're all short. They're 2-3 minutes long max. And it'll give you some good insight on 2 or 3 good teaching points for when you're going to practice that day. We've had a lot of coaches actually email it out to their players and say, hey, we're going to work on this today. Check out this video, which is really cool. And I've had a chance to go on the ice with some of these teams after they've shared it with their players, and it was good because they had a lot of those key concepts already understood, and we wasted a lot less time on the ice going through some of those key concepts because a lot of the kids had seen the video and had a chance to kind of look at it and got some of the key things we were going to be touching on that day, which is really cool. So we're also on Instagram at NSDA and kind of all your social media stuff, but Facebook and all that stuff. But really pumped about our YouTube channel. It's been really cool. And we're going to definitely look at doing this again. And when we do, we'll send it out a couple days in advance and let all you know. And if you have time to jump on or you have questions, you can fire them in beforehand, or you can do them live, and I'll try to answer as many as I can when we're going live. All right. Thanks a lot.